We're going to talk about how to choose red wine. Now, choosing a red wine, as there are a variety of styles, you need to look at what the occasion is going to be when you're going to have the red wine. You also need to think about your own tastes for the styles of wines you like. If you're sharing your wine with other people, perhaps look at what they like as well. So there's a lot to think about. However, I would probably begin by saying one of the key things you look at in the red wine is its strength. If you're drinking at lunchtime, for example, you want to pick a wine that's light in alcohol and maybe light in texture and body, because it just stops you falling asleep in the late afternoon. So that's a possibility of a guide as to the first thing you should look at. In terms of your tastes, you've got to think about, do you like big fruity wines or do you like restrained wines? If you like big fruity wines, you go for something like an Australian Shiraz, wines from Chile, wines from California, and some of the wines from New Zealand and South Africa as well. So basically New World wines. The Old World do make wines that are big and fruity as well. South of France, Languedoc-Roussillon region will give you wines of this style, and also the Rhone region will give you wines that are big, fruity. However, with the Rhone wines, they can be a bit more restrained, so they're very food friendly as well. For myself, when I look for wine, I start off, as I said, by looking at what is my occasion going to be. I'm going to have wine at lunch. I want a light wine, something quite drinkable, something quite relaxing, something fruity. If I'm going for a big lunch, yes, I can combine that with a big, heavy wine. For example, Chateauneuf du Pape, some of the good Bordeaux, even the Californian Cabernet Sauvignon. Again, that depends on the food that's being served. Wines in the evening, you've got more flexibility. The weight of the wine is less of an issue because if you're at home, you know you're going to be relaxing, winding down at the end of the day. So you can choose virtually any wine, from light wines like a Beaujolais to a big Cabernet Sauvignon from California. What only dictates your choice at this stage is whether you're combining it with a meal where you can afford to have more tannic and richer wines, or whether you want the wine more or less like an aperitif or relaxing wine. Sometimes you can use wines, a very expensive wine, actually to analyze and intellectualize about this wine with friends, sitting, chatting, in which case, your field of wines is open and you might be looking for much more complex wines then. Apart from what you initially think about choosing wines, you have a lot of guidance out there on the market. There are a number of books you can use to learn about the different styles of red wines you can choose. And then when you get to the shop, often the bottles would tell you the geographic region the wine is coming from. So you know whether if you like French wines, for example, you can perhaps get something like that, a Burgundy, which normally comes in a Burgundy-shaped bottle, as opposed to a Bordeaux-shaped bottle. That's an easy guide to choose whether you're going for Burgundy and Rhone wines or Bordeaux-style wines. Now, this may all sound like a minefield. However, there are a lot of small specialist shops that can give you a lot of help in choosing wine. And they will be able to guide you through, if you tell them exactly how you're using your wine, what your tastes are, they will actually go through and show you the wines that fit with your characteristics. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Best thing about wine is exploration. Most wine producers these days are making very, very good quality wines, even at $5.99 and up to £100, £200. So it doesn't really matter what your price point is. You're always going to get really good quality wines from a good specialist. I would always try and buy wines that are within the drinking period. And for that, perhaps you may need to do a bit of homework to find out how the wines age. If it's a cheap wine, always try and buy it as near to vintage as possible. By vintage, I mean the year at which the grapes are picked, and that's the year they put on the bottle in most cases. So that's how we choose red wine.